Excelências, senhoras e senhores, e amigos, bem-vindos a esta edição anual de 2024 do Fórum Interreligioso do G20, ou IF20, e da Parceria sobre Religião e Desenvolvimento Sustentável, PAR. Meu nome é Romanna Remor e tenho o privilégio e a honra de ser a mestre de cerimônias deste evento. Estamos honrados em ter um público muito distinto, com autoridades governamentais, líderes religiosos, acadêmicos, sociedade civil e outros. Gostaríamos muito de poder reconhecer os líderes de cada um desses setores individualmente, mas percebemos que há muitos para serem nomeados. Esperamos que vocês nos perdoem essa falta de especificidade, mas estamos ansiosos para que ninguém fique de fora. Now, I would ask that everyone stand for the Brazilian National Anthem. Agora pedimos que todos fiquem de pé para a execução do hino nacional brasileiro.
Eternamente imenso e esplêndido, ao som do mar e à luz do céu profundo, fulguras ao Brasil, florão da América, iluminando ao sol do novo mundo, do que a terra mais garrida, teus risonhos lindos campos têm mais flores, nossos bosques têm mais vida, nossa vida no teu seio mais amores. Oh, pátria amada e idolatrada, salve, salve, Brasil de amor eterno seja símbolo, na garupa sempre estrelado, e diga o verde louro desta flâmula, mas no futuro e glória no passado. Mas antes a justiça acaba forte, verás que o filho teu não foge à luta, que tem idente agora a própria morte. Ilhas do Brasil, ó pátria amada, dos filhos desse sol és mais gentil, pátria amada, Brasil.
Thank you. We now have an Interfaith Opening. Nós teremos agora uma abertura interreligiosa. E peço que todos mantenham no coração a energia e a emoção do nosso hino nacional ao longo de todo o fórum.
Good morning, bom dia. I'm deeply inspired by the Bible message that true worship goes beyond rituals, urging us to act justly, break the chains of oppression, and care for the needy. Genuine faith is shown through acts of compassion and justice, challenging us to share with the hungry, shelter the homeless, clothe the naked, and care for creation, leaving no one behind.
I invite you all to bring your attention to the center of your forehead, feeling that a wonderful star shines, bringing light, peace, love, and everything that we need for our planet. I take this power from the source, from God, and become an instrument to spread this light throughout our whole family, our whole global family.
There is a sacred Vedic mantra that says, Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhaved. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings attain their highest state, their highest potential. May no being suffer. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will share the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It says, Ahibba linasi ma tuhibbu linafsika. Love for others what you love for yourself, so leave no one behind.
I would like to share a prayer from the Baha'i writings. O my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge, and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their helper and their Lord.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With so much hatred and strife in the world today, it's more imperative than ever that we can showcase positive models of working together towards peace and security. As a Muslim woman, I believe in compassionate and resilient leadership to ensure that we leave no one behind. The community is critical to developing a sense of purpose and focus towards building successful nations. The community in Islam is not founded on race, nationality, locality, occupation, kinship, or special interests. It transcends national borders and political boundaries. But we should not only focus on the Anthropocene. The Holy Quran states, there is no animal on the earth or any bird that wings its flight, but is a community like you. Quran 6:38. Shukran.
Mayambu Taramna Kurumjari, my obeisance to each and every one present here. I bring from the indigenous faith tradition, but first of all, recognize the indigenous people on whose land here in Brasilia that we stand here today. We pay our respects to our elders and our ancestors, past and present. And allow me to speak a few prayers in my indigenous Manipuri language. He Ishwar aikoi mayam bu pumna konchen biriba ngasigi yai paraba numit sida mayam da mangal pinaba mayam da shanti puraknaba aranba kaya sungak piyu amasung thauna leina shanti puraknaba tangdu leitaba leipak ama oinaba prithibi ama oinaba. What I just shared with this, I pray to the divine that we have peace on this earth, that if there are mistakes that we as humans had made, we should have the courage to accept and to be able to be strengthened by the light, that we continue our work for peace and for ensuring that every human being in this world are able to live a safe, secure, and loving life. And I end with another prayer from the Cheyenne people. As long as there is sun, as long as the rivers flow in our lands, as long as the moon shines its beautiful glow on this earth, as long as the grass is green, let there be peace. Thank you. Yam nungai jere.
Makata, from the heart of Father Sky and the heart of Mother Earth, original nations and peoples call for the unification process in the care of life. This is the time, and the time is now.
Inspired by the love of Jesus Christ, we give thanks for this moment. God of love, help us to take care of the Mother Earth that you gave us, so that it truly is everyone's home. May we always know how to go to meet the poor, to go to the material and existential peripheries. Amen.
Manda mool na ki chayi de lammi nadre nihaliye. Timeless spiritual wisdom, Gurmat, which is at the heart of Sikhi, inspires us to be far-sighted. Once we master this art and live as humble guests, we will intuitively foster well-being of nature, animals, and human beings in politics, business, and in everyday life.
Kamuna Watati Logo, the world is driven by Kamma. Today, 48 years ago, I was born into this world, a world that, as the Buddha said, driven by Kamma. In Buddhism, Kamma refers to our bodily, verbal, and mental action. Logo can mean both the planet and its people. If we can begin by transforming our minds, we can change our Kamma. And in doing so, we can transform the world. And as we gather here at G20 Interfaith Forum, let us inspire one another to flap the wings of compassion and wisdom in our minds, creating waves of well-being that reach every corner of our world, leaving no one behind.
Thank you. Obrigada. We'll now go forward with an interfaith welcome, including people from many different religious traditions. We invite those who have been selected to be part of this opening event to come to the stand. Muito obrigada. Podem se sentar. Agora prosseguiremos com uma recepção e uma introdução interreligiosa, incluindo pessoas de muitas tradições e organizações. Convidamos a virem ao palco os que estão aqui, com seu nome aqui, que eu chamarei. So I invite to come to the stand Rodrigo Vitorino Souza Alves, Chair of the Local Organizing Committee for IF20 Brazil 2024, Director of the Brazilian Center for Studies in Law and Religion, and Professor of Law at the Federal University of Uberlandia. Rodrigo Vitorino, coordenador nacional do IF20 Brasil 2024. Pesquisador líder do Centro Brasileiro de Estudos em Direito e Religião e professor de Direito da Universidade Federal de Uberlândia. Flávio Pazeto, Brazil's G20 Sherpa Team of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil. Flávio Pazeto, da equipe Sherpa do G20 do Brasil, do Ministério das Relações Exteriores. Irenilda Aparecida Maria Francisco, também conhecida como Gilda, General Coordinator for Religious Freedom at the Ministry of Human Rights and Citizenship of Brazil. Coordenadora geral da promoção da liberdade religiosa do Ministério dos Direitos Humanos e da Cidadania. W. Cole Durham Jr., President of G20 Interfaith Forum and Founding Director of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. He's already here with us. Presidente do Fórum Interreligioso do G20 e diretor fundador do Centro Internacional para Estudos em Direito e Religião, que já está aqui conosco no palco. Khushwant Singh, Head of Secretariat at the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development, PARD. Chefe do Secretariado da Parceria Internacional sobre Religião e Desenvolvimento Sustentável, PARD. Hamad, Khatir, Vice President of the Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities, Vice-Presidente da Aliança Interreligiosa para Comunidades Mais Seguras. Katherine Marshall, Vice President of G20 Interfaith Forum, Executive Director of World Faith Development Dialogue. Vice-presidente do Fórum Interreligioso do G20 e diretora executiva do Diálogo para o Desenvolvimento das Religiões Mundiais. We invite you to take a seat and give your welcoming addresses. Nós os convidamos a se sentarem e nos dirigirem, então, as suas mensagens de boas-vindas.
Good morning. I'm honored to be a part of this plenary session on the topic of towards an equitable world and of promise and opportunity. I am very pleased to be here, especially to make some comments and to give a welcome as the national coordinator for the G20 Interfaith Forum. It has been a very long year working towards this moment, and I'm so grateful for everyone that is here, that came from different parts of the world, for our team that has been very supportive from different organizations that has dedicated time and effort to make this a very special moment. And we do hope that you feel welcome in our country. And in this event, I also would like to greet my fellow Brazilians that are here attending this special event. The theme of this conference is Leave No One Behind, the well-being of the planet and its people. And that's what we are trying to do. We have people from different sectors communities, religious and interfaith organizations gathered here in this place to discuss ways of building an equitable world of promise and opportunity for everyone. We live these days in a very polarized world, and in many parts of the world, like in Brazil, our societies face tensions that in many times are related to religion. And having an event to discuss these issues with representatives from different parts of the world gives us hope of a better world. So I am very grateful for this opportunity, and I would like also to express my gratitude to the G20 team. And we have here with us Flávio Pazeto, who is a member of the Sherpas team from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil. The Brazilian government has been very supportive of this event. We have different representatives from different ministries that are open to have this dialogue with civil society, and in this case with representatives from the religious sector. So thank you very much, Flávio Pazeto, and I would like to thank also the Sherpa and the G20 social coordinator, Gustavo Westman, who's going to be with us in the concluding session, and all the government representatives that will be here. The Minister of Environment will be with us this evening, and the Minister of Human Rights in the concluding session. So we'll have this opportunity to bring those topics that are important and relevant to the interreligious sector, to those that are working on the promotion of the G20 agenda. So I wish you an excellent event, and I hope you'll enjoy it and we'll be able to interact during these next 2 or 3 days. Thank you very much.
May I? Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thanks for inviting the Sherpa, Mauricio Lírio, from the Brazilian government to come to this occasion. Unfortunately, the Sherpa could not attend. He's going to another meeting in São Paulo. I am Flávio Pazeto. I am one of the members of the team acting sous-Sherpa on his behalf. And I had prepared a speech, as many government officials tend to do in these occasions, which is long and in a language which is difficult to understand. So I'll skip the speech and I'll try to very informally communicate with you some key messages about what's behind the Brazilian government planning, government assessment in preparing and executing the G20 presidency. This is not the first time Brazil presides the G20. We had presided the G20 back when the G20 was in a different configuration. It was a ministerial configuration, mostly around the finance matters. This was before the major economic crisis of 2007, 2008. And then in 2008, very much under US leadership, the G20 was reconfigured to have the format that we have currently. It is then the first time that Brazil presides the G20 under this configuration, which is a configuration that has 2 tracks, one traditional finance track and one new but ever-growing Sherpa track, trying to make sure that these 20 big figures in world politics talk to each other and try to find common position in many areas of public policies. Brazil in that circumstance, tried to do, for the first time its presidency, selecting a very limited number of priorities, which we think is helpful for the group to achieve meaningful results in each of the selected areas. So we chose 3 areas to try to make progress. The first one is social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty. The pandemic actually increased the number of people suffering from hunger in the world from something around 600 million to 730 million, according to last FAO report on the matter. So Brazil is very hard trying to work for the G20 to produce a global alliance against hunger and poverty. The resources needed to end hunger in the world by the end of the decade, which is the target in the Agenda 2030, are not that big. Actually, it's much less than the resources being added to fighting wars, to new wars being fought around the world. We think it's an effort worth taking, and Brazil is very hard trying to take the leadership in this matter and launch the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty by the end of our presidency. The second priority is promoting sustainable development and fighting climate change. Climate is one of the few challenges that actually will have to unite the world for a meaningful result to be achieved. It's not something that we can achieve only with money. It's something that we have to achieve with money and public policies. It's not something that we can, from the perspective of a developing country, just complain that developed countries have to do more. Developing countries will have to do more. This country will have to do more. And I think the government of President Lula has been very active by implementing new public policies, for instance, in fighting deforestation, trying to give its contribution to the fight against climate change. And the last priority in Brazil's G20 presidency is the reform of global governance. We really feel that the structures of global governance are stuck in time, and Brazil, let's say, having been called to do more in many areas, in the environment, in the fight against climate change, we really think that countries like Brazil, like India, and many others, many countries in Africa, we have to do more, but the structures of global governance will have to be adjusted for a new global governance, both in terms of how the IMF is managed, how the World Bank is managed, how in the WTO the dispute settlement mechanism is managed, and the UN is managed. These structures will have to be reformed for us to be able to face these new challenges in the 21st century. So these are the priorities that we selected at last, and I understand that my time is up. I just would like to say that we are trying to be a presidency as open to civil society as possible. We have done some very specific things trying to, in the government tracks, receive the inputs from civil society, from the engagement groups, and from groups which are not formal engagement groups such as the Interfaith 20, and allow these inputs to filter through and influence the outcomes of the presidency. So we're trying to be as open as possible, mindful that we have to manage a group which brings together 20, I would say, very different animals into the room, and we have to work as chair country to produce a common position amongst the 20. It's a challenging situation, but we think that Brazil can try very hard and achieve some meaningful results. So that's it from me. Thank you very much once again.
Carry this over to Irenilda is next.
I think it's your turn. My turn? No, from then?
So.
Bom dia a todos e todas e todes. Me chamo Gilda. Na realidade, Irenilda Aparecida Maria Francisca, porque foi assim que eu assumi a minha posição. Estou aqui representando o Ministério de Direitos Humanos e Cidadania. Sou coordenadora geral de promoção da pasta Liberdade Religiosa. Então, primeiramente, eu quero agradecer aos meus ancestrais por poder estar aqui novamente neste excelente, maravilhoso encontro do G20. Quero agradecer ao nosso querido presidente Collor, quero agradecer ao nosso querido diretor, Rodrigo, ao meu assessor de todos os assuntos, Ivo, e a todos vocês. Hoje faço parte de uma coordenação de suma importância que nós sabemos que chama-se liberdade religiosa. Então, sou essa pessoa aqui, coordenadora geral de promoção de liberdade religiosa do MDHC. Um bom dia a todos vocês.
Uma Heshipsonka Kavoroso. Dear Excellencies, colleagues and friends, a warm welcome to all of you. It is indeed a great honor to have the opportunity to be here and organize this gathering together with the IF20 team and all the other partners. Thanks to all who made all this possible. I think we can all clap and say thank you. I'm also very grateful to all those who are and have been supporting the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development, especially the German government. It is the first time that I'm in Latin America. So I was able to spend a few days in Rio, and now also here in Brasilia. I can tell you the friendliness, the respect I have received, the beauty of nature. All this is really amazing and absolutely wonderful. Let me tell you, if I'm offered the Brazilian citizenship, I would go for it. We have high-ranking ministers here and also government representatives. So I hope you will like this gathering and you will like the work which we are doing. Hopefully it impresses you so much that it might help me getting my Brazilian citizenship. Brazil is a very diverse country and population. It is home to various indigenous communities and ecosystems like the Amazon rainforest, which is important not only for Brazil, but globally. It is crucial for the whole of Mother Earth. 90% of Brazilians, this is what I learned, say that they are religious. 8 out of 10 people worldwide affiliate with a religious tradition. So if we were to live the potential of our spirituality fully at home, in business, but also in politics, we would intuitively not only speak, but work for the well-being of nature, humans, and animals. We would change course intuitively. Imagine 8 out of 10 people change course. This room is filled with people of goodwill. Imagine 8 out of 10 people in this room and those joining virtually change course. We are here to remind us of the urgency of the situation. The world is indeed in turmoil. While nearly half of the world's wealth is held by the richest 1%, 1.1 billion people, nearly 20% of the world population, live in acute poverty across 110 countries. There are far over 100 armed conflicts and more than 100 million refugees worldwide. And the rates of depression, stress, burnout, and loneliness are globally on the rise. But rarely do we reflect upon the root causes of all this. The Sustainable Development Report 2024, which has been recently published, shows we are off track. We are completely off track. This includes, and you have been referring to it, important topics like poverty and hunger. Only 16% of the SDG targets are going to be met as of now. 16% only, and we're in 2024. The report says that global challenges require global cooperation and more multilateralism. This is true, but it is also true that we can only achieve the SDGs with civil society and not without it. This includes religious actors. This includes providing funding for civil society. This includes being more attentive to ethical consideration. This includes a transformational shift in our values and attitudes. This includes realizing that weapons alone can never solve a problem sustainably. And that is why we have gathered here under the theme, Leave No One Behind, the well-being of the planet and its people. We are here to strengthen collaboration among all key entities, including religious actors. We are here to contribute to the G20 theme, Building a Just World and a Sustainable Planet. We in part bring together governments, multilaterals, academia, religious actors and other civil society actors to ensure long-term cooperation among our 170 global members. We work on health, environmental protection, peace, freedom of religion and belief, gender, and other important issues relevant to the SDGs. I kindly invite all of you who are not part of this partnership to join the partnership if you would like. I especially invite the representatives of the Brazilian government to get to know PART a bit better in the next days. And if you consider joining it, if you see the same added value as we see, please let us know. We have representatives also of the Indonesian government here. They joined our partnership 2 years back, and I spoke to them, and they're very happy and open to speak to you about the added value of this partnership. The membership is free of cost, so you don't need to bring a bag full of money with you. It's just about identifying a suitable officer who is willing to work on these issues. Let me conclude with this. Above all, spirituality reminds us, and we have seen this in the Interfaith Opening, reminds us to take our role seriously as guests on this wonderful blue planet. In our wisdom, in our tradition Sikhi, we say, Vaat na kari mamla jane mehman. We are guests and we should adhere to guests, to the role of guests. Guests are respectful, they honor the host, they do not destroy the place they are visiting for a certain period. We are just humble guests. I close with Paulo Coelho. I just read the book, The Alchemist. Some of those who attended yesterday's reception know about it. And the book says, it's the simple things in life that are most extraordinary, and only wise people are able to understand them. It is in our hands if we want to leave as bad guests or as good guests. I wish us all inspiring dialogues, and I invite you to a session which we will have tomorrow on holistic well-being, where also the environmental minister Marina Silva will most probably join us, hopefully. And I close with my very bad Portuguese, but I'm really trying hard to learn because, you know, I want to get the citizenship. Desejo a todos nos diálogos inspiradores.
So I apologize. There's we've been wrestling with a few technical things behind the scenes. So I think you will understand and bear with us. I want to express thanks on behalf of the G20 Interfaith for all of you attending and for the remarkable event that is coming to pass, and thanks also to Khushwant and to PARD for their partnership on this event with us, also to the Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities that we'll hear from in a moment. I think as I listen to the representative from Brazil, one of the things I'm very conscious of their priorities And we're very grateful for their reaching out. I know that we were asked to submit a number of priorities in June already. These line up with the three priorities that they've talked about. And one of the things that is striking to me, on the one hand, there is, we all know the difficulties facing the SDGs that Khushwant has just referred to. And yet, at the same time, one of the things that your speech emphasized is that, in theory at least, these are not impossible problems. What's really significant is having the will and finding the practical ways to make solutions happen. And one of our experiences over the past decade working with the interfaith, the G20 interfaith, has been that this provides a platform to bring religious voices to bear that can come to bear in a coherent way and that can come to bear in a way that can make practical, policy-oriented recommendations that can make a difference. One of the things that we know with respect to the SDGs, despite the fact that the SDGs don't mention religion at all, I think government leaders are often a little bit afraid of religion because we know that religion is very diverse, sometimes conflicting. But one of the things that we've found in this environment is if we come together and identify some of the areas where we have shared priorities and really work together, religious communities can be a tremendous force extending from the top policy levels down to the grassroots to really make a difference. And one of the things that I can attest to over the years working with this process is exactly that as those of us come together from different backgrounds but committed to finding active solutions, to working with the governments to see what they're recommending and to be supportive in ways that can bring things together, this can make a huge difference. So that's one of the things we're hoping for. We're hoping for ways to find impact and to have impact. So let us go forward together and do that. Thank you very much. The MC will announce this also, but for a variety of reasons, we've asked His Virtue to be part of this session, so he will speak after Katherine Marshall. But first, Khatir.
Thank you so much. Esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And for those who join us virtually, good afternoon and good evening. And thank you for joining us virtually as well. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Hamad, Khatir, and I have the honor of serving as the Vice President of Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities. It is a truly privilege to be here with you in Brasilia. On behalf of Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities and our esteemed partners, particularly the G20 Interfaith Forum Association and the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development, I extend my deepest thanks to you all for joining us today. I would also like to express our heartfelt appreciation to a Brazilian G20 presidency for its warm and supportive welcome and for its support for this forum. Thank you so much. We are thrilled to witness the partnership formed at the dialogue started at the previous Interfaith Forum in Abu Dhabi and India, beginning to bear fruit in communities across the globe. This week, we have come together here in Brasilia to focus on a theme that deeply connects with our shared value. Leave no one behind. The well-being of planet and its people. The well-being of our planet is the most pressing crisis of our time. Climate change impacts every one of us, highlighting the critical need for global solutions to global problems. The pandemic showed us just how interconnected our world is, and it is essential that we build on the same and the sense of unity it created. faith, by its very nature, is deeply rooted in communities that are often the most vulnerable to the impact of a climate crisis. Climate change is not just an environmental issue, it is the greatest moral challenge of our time. And this forum can play a valuable role in driving meaningful actions. The second theme we address is the well-being of the world. The well-being of the world's people. It is our shared responsibility to protect the most vulnerable among us. And the world struggling with the impact of the pandemic, the rising inflation, economic slowdowns, and regional conflict. These least able to protect themselves are at greatest risk. Children in particular. Emerging as a central priority during our gathering in Abu Dhabi, and this focus continues to guide us. Children continue to be disproportionately impacted by existing and emerging threats. It is our scared duty to nature to protect and empower them. Children are our future. Our commitment to them today will determine the legacy we leave for the generations to come. In past forum, we spoke extensively about the role of faith as a voice for the voiceless. Today, we must once again use the shared voice to advocate for a better and more sustainable future, a future in which all are heard and respected. Esteemed colleagues and friends, each of you has a critical role in making this forum the success that I am confident it will be. It is a true privilege to be in the presence of so many distinguished leaders from diverse communities. The G20 Interfaith Forum holds a vital position on the global stage. In a world facing a growing inequality, environmental threat, and violent conflict, people everywhere are turning to faith and faith leaders for guidance. We now have the opportunity to build upon our recent meetings and make a decisive impact on the G20 priorities ahead of November 2024. Our agenda reflects this ambition, enabling open and productive exchange of knowledge and showing the critical importance of international interfaith cooperation. The insights shared by the expert and community leaders gathered here will highlight the strategies, challenges, and opportunity before us, reminding us that the well-being of people and the planet are closely linked. As we move toward our closing plenary in 3 days, I am confident that we will be equipped with the tools to bring even greater interfaith solutions to global challenges and to shape international dialogue. I look forward to reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. As we explore the profound value of faith in navigating our challenging but fundamental hopeful world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I have a somewhat special mission and was even given a little bit extra time to try to explain a bit more where we've come, what our journey has been as the G20 Interfaith, and why we're here. So why the G20, why faith, why Brazil, where are we going, and what's the purpose? So it's been a 10-year journey. With some roots that have extended actually well before. That has brought us to the Interfaith Forum in Brasilia today. So where have we come and where are we going? So first, why the G20? The G20, the group of 20, for those of you who don't know all the acronyms, is very much a part of today's global governance system. And it was created in 1999. We got some of the history before, with the prime mission of crisis management. And it reflected a tacit recognition of the challenges of working within the vast and complex United Nations system. So the idea was to establish a more flexible, adaptable, less formal mechanism, but one that was more inclusive, less exclusive, you could say, than the G7 process. So the G20 came into being essentially as an annual meeting of powerful world leaders, and it's taken on increasing importance, particularly since the 2008 economic crisis and the COVID-19 emergencies. So a feature of the G20, like the G7, is that its presidency and thus location rotates every year. So India, the 2023 host, passed the presidential baton to Brazil in December 2023, and in December 2024, Brazil will pass it to South Africa, and the year after to the United States. So with this rotating presidency, the G20 process each year reflects a different agenda and a different ethos, obviously with some continuities, but with no formal secretariat. The Summit of Leaders is the central focus in November this year. And the term Sherpas, which we've heard, is used for those who support the leaders as they move towards and climb towards the summit. So, but despite this core, straightforward feature, a constellation of processes have emerged around the G20, with ministerials, different tracks, task forces, working groups, and 13, I think now, engagement groups. The G20 is focused, and to a large extent still focuses on managing global crises. This is critical in today's extraordinary array of interlinked challenges that we term the mega crisis, or unfortunately the perma crisis. But the G20 agendas have, however, as we heard already, broadened over the years so that they include the full Sustainable Development Goals agenda, and thus pretty much the whole global agenda. Far more could be said about the G20, but we have chosen to focus on it because of its central roles and its focus on both crises and global agendas. So why faith and why interfaith? We begin with the observation that religious institutions are often invisible in global policy forums, despite vital insights and action roles. This core observation has many dimensions, but the most important is, in our view, is the common commitment of world religions in their teachings and practical action to those who are most vulnerable and who are buffeted by these crises. So articulated through many interfaith efforts, their voices belong as a part of the G20. There are predecessors to that, for example, groups to engage religious voices in the G7 process since the 1990s, and parallels, for example, faith representation at the United Nations. But our effort as an institution and collaboration since 2014 have focused on the G20. So reiterating the core rationale of this interfaith focus, some 84% of the world's population has some religious affiliation. And that voice, complex as it is, needs to be an essential part of global discussions. And the voice is expressed in many different voices and cadences, but the core idea is that leaving religious inputs aside is gravely mistaken. So the G20 Interfaith Forum has evolved over the years, and our goals and reach have become increasingly more ambitious. Born in 2014 with a meeting alongside the G20 Summit in Australia, the G20 Forum has focused each year since then: Turkey, China, Germany, Argentina, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Italy, Indonesia, India, with a specific meeting or forum. But increasingly, the G20 Interfaith Forum organizes and participates in a much wider set of meetings and collaborations where the G20 agendas and issues are integrated in broader discussions on leading agendas. For example, refugees, children, climate, and hunger. And we've moved from a fairly academic discussion of diverse religious perspectives to an explicit focus on the G20 agendas, and notably the most relevant Sustainable Development Goals. So a central concept and modus operandi is what we call the network of networks. The G20 Interfaith Forum draws on the most relevant, demanding work of many faith, multi-faith, interfaith, intrafaith efforts that address global agendas. And they include the large global networks, Religions for Peace, United Religions Initiative, specialized groups like the ACT Alliance, Peacemakers Network, PARD, obviously, the International Partnership of Religions for Sustainable Development, and many others, including Arigato International, the Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities, KAICID, the Joint Learning Initiative, and many others. So the G20 Interfaith Forum supports and draws wisdom from these and others. So where does the G20 Interfaith Forum fit within the complex G20 world that some describe as a constellation? The G20 Interfaith Forum is a part of this constellation around the G20, although it is not a formal engagement group. We work with several of the formal engagement groups like the C20, civil society, T20 think tanks, but we believe that the religious dimension is distinctive and needs its own voice. And there are advantages and disadvantages of being a valued, respected member of the G20 process, but with distinctive qualities, character, and organization. So the IF20 is run as a virtual organization, a modest organization engaging people from G20 countries, but well beyond, represented in an advisory council that meets regularly. It has a very small secretariat in Utah. It's a U.S. 501c3, and it works with several organizations, including Brigham Young University and my university, Georgetown University. And a priority for us is to strengthen this structure in the coming years. So the Brazil G20 presidency is our focus here. And the forum agenda is linked and structured clearly around the Brazilian agenda, with the strong common theme of action on poverty and support to those who are left behind or who risk being left behind. The G20 Forum has engaged with different Brazilian communities throughout this year with meetings in Brasilia, Rio, Belém, and Manaus, focusing, among other issues, on interfaith action, on bold action on hunger to protect the Amazon rainforest, and interfaith relationships, notably involving communities of African descent and indigenous communities. Important discussions also took place in Addis Ababa, the African Union context, Geneva, and Indonesia. And we look forward to continuing collaboration on the Brazilian presidency, culminating in the Social Summit in November, in which we will participate. So what is the G20 Interfaith Forum's central focus now and looking ahead? Today's extraordinary times place heavy demands on G20 leadership, but also on the G20 Interfaith Forum. We see the constant dynamic intersections of different crises. So no line separates the climate crisis from hunger, conflict from refugees, the plight of women and children. Conflicts demand much of the G20 leadership and of the G20 partners, like the G20 Interfaith Forum. And the G20 Interfaith Forum offers the opportunity to a network of networks to contribute, coming together to coordinate, capture wisdom and experience, and move forward. So we aim to amplify both powerful prophetic voices and the day-to-day knowledge of lived religion in the deliberations of the G20. So the G20 Interfaith Forum wrestles with the enormous tensions between our broad appreciation for the diversity and the multiple dimensions of crises and imperatives. But within this constraining reality, we need a focused, targeted forum. And we seek an authentic inclusion of diverse perspectives and actors, but we also see the tension reflected in the rich and diverse forum agenda. You will see that. Each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets has faith dimensions, but our challenge is to try to see the common lines and basic themes that bring us together. But we are also keenly aware that focus is vital to action and to impact. So the Brazilian G20 leaders, in an important first, are seeking inputs from civil society broadly defined, with a social summit just before the full leader summit in November. And the G20 Interfaith Forum was invited to submit a distilled set of recommendations in June. So we have highlighted 5 priority topics: food and hunger, global support for development, including debt action, action on climate, with the Interfaith Rainforest Initiative as a beacon, education as a focus for living harmoniously in plural societies, and action on human trafficking. The summary recommendations were included in your welcome packet, and they are available on the website, along with a brief that addresses each of them. And we will elaborate recommendations here and between now and November, including through a series of focused webinars. The forum will address many other issues, but we are acutely conscious that focus and impact go hand in hand, as do rigor and going with inspiration. So our mission is to highlight the common themes and, above all, to keep a laser focus on the problems of the most vulnerable, particularly children, women, refugees, the hungry, and far too many other groups. We see that as our primary focus and our primary message. So thank you.
Thank you all. We still have one of our leaders here that will address the audience. But before, I would like to highlight that religious freedom, sustainable development, and peace have never been without challenges. And so we shouldn't expect that this important event wouldn't go without challenges. But we know that you've come from long and resilient roads, and you'll stand with us. And these challenges may interfere in our communication, but it won't impede the broadening of our understanding. So stay with us. We are working to solve the technical problems and have the translations functioning soon. Antes, então, de passar a palavra para o líder que vai nos falar, só gostaria de salientar que o caminho para a paz, para o desenvolvimento sustentável e para a liberdade religiosa nunca foi sem desafios. Então, não é de se estranhar que, num evento tão importante quanto este, nós não tivéssemos a nossa resiliência testada. Mas nós sabemos que vocês vêm de um longo caminho. E isso é muito pequeno diante de algo tão grandioso que está sendo construído aqui. Então, mantenham-se conosco, resolutos na construção desse diálogo tão memorável que será feito aqui. E, em breve, nós conseguiremos transpor esse desafio da tradução de inglês para português e de português para inglês. Está bem? Então, agora nós vamos ouvir o Sheikh Islam Alam Shukur Pashazad. E ele é presidente do Conselho Caucasiano Islam. So now we'll hear from Sheikh Islam Alan Shukur Pashazad. He's the chairman of the Caucasian Muslim Board, the grand multi of all the Caucasus. He was invited to come earlier because of the technical problems, since he had the support, he needed the support of the screen. Please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin ve salatu ve selamu ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve ashabihi ecma'in. Hürmetli sadarat, değerli devlet, din, ilim, içtimaiyet kadimleri, muhterem forum iştirakçıları. İlk növbədə Braziliyanın G20'də sədrliyi çərçivəsində dinlər arası foruma dəvətə görə minnətdarlığımı ifadə edirəm. Braziliya forumunun iştirakçılarına Azərbaycan Respublikasının prezidenti Zat-ı Aliləri Cənab İlham Əliyevin salamlarını və xalqlarımızın ən xoş arzularını çatdırmaqdan şərəf duyuram. Müasir dövrdə siyasi, ictimai və dini liderlərin birgə səylərinin artırılması və qlobal dialoq zərurətindən irəli gələn böyük 20'lik ərəfəsi dinlər arası forumlar, dövlət və din nümayəndələrinin birgə əməkdaşlığının praktiki təzahürüdür. Beynəlxalq sabitliyə təhdid olan ksenofobiya tazahürləri, etnik, dini, irqi, ayrı seçkiliyə təhrik edən nifrət çağırışları dünya ictimaiyyəti tərəfindən qətiyyətlə qınanmalıdır. Dünyada törədilən ekoloji və müharibə cinayətləri, ekosistemin pozulması, mümbit torpaqların yararsız hala salınması səbəbindən yaşanan qıtlıq, qida çatışmamazlığı, ərzaq təhlükəsizliyi, bəşəriyyəti təhdid edən problemlərin ön cərgəsindədir. Bugünkü forumun sülh və əmin-amanlığı tərənnüm etməsi, münaqişələrə, bərabərsizliyə son qoymağa çağırması, bəşəri narahat edən aclıq, yoxsulluq, ərzaq təhlükəsizliyi, ətraf mühit, dini etiqad azadlığının, uşaq, qadın və gənclərin hüquqlarının qorunması kimi mühüm problemlərə diqqət ayrılması təqdir olunması haldır. Müqəddəs Quran-Kərimdə buyurulur ki, Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, və la tufsidu fil ardı ba'de islahiha. Sadaqallahul azim. Bütün dünya və ənənəvi dinlər bəşərə ətraf mühitə mərhəmət, ehtiram ruhunu təlqin edir və əks təqdirdə yaşanacaq fəlakət, böhran və imtihanlardan xəbərdar edir. Sürətlə silahlanma, yeryüzündə hərb rotorikasını gücləndirir, nüvə təhdidləri artırmaqdadır. Bütün bunlar sülh istiqamətində səylərimizi daha da artırmağa, bəşərin təhlükəsizliyi, mövcudluğunun qorunması yönündə real nəticələr naminə davamlı birgə fəaliyyət göstərməyimizi hər zamankindən daha artıq zərurət edir. Ekoloji böhran, iqlim dəyişikliklərinin fəsadlarının aradan qaldırılması bu ilin noyabrında Bakıda COP29 BMT tədbirində müzakirə ediləcəkdir inşallah. Bu forum çərçivəsində iqlim problemlərinin mənəvi dəyərləndirilməsində dini liderlər yaxından iştirak edəcəklər. Bu arada Braziliya dövlətinin qlobal müstəvidə faal mövqeyi, qitənin aparıcı dövləti olaraq böyük 20'lik zirvəsinə və COP30'a ev sahibliyi etmək şərəfinə layiq olması böyük əhəmiyyət kəsb edən hadisələrdir. Bu işdə Braziliya dövlətinə və xalqına xeyri dualar diləyirik. Təqdirə layiq haldır ki, BMT-nin COP sessiyalarına sədrlik edən Birləşmiş Ərəb Əmirlikləri, Azərbaycan və Braziliya davamlı əməkdaşlıq platformasında COP sədrləri üçlüyündə bir araya gəliblər. Bu xoşməramlı fəaliyyətlərdə ölkələrimizdə uğurlar arzulayırıq. Hörmətli forum iştirakçıları, Azərbaycan Respublikası beynəlxalq hüquq normalları çərçivəsində BMT-nin məlum qətnamalarını yerinə yetirərək işğala son qoyaraq Dünya Birliyi tərəfindən tanınan arazi bütövlüyünü və suverenliyini tam bərpa etmişdir. Bugün Azərbaycan dövləti işğaldan azad olunmuş Qarabağda dinc quruculuq işləri və əhalinin qayıdış layihələrini həyata keçirir. Ekosid və irbisidin nəticələrini aradan qaldırır. Bölgəmizdə sülh və tərəqqi yönündə səy göstərir. Qürur duyuram ki, təmsil etdiyim Azərbaycan tolerantlıq, multikulturalizm diyarı olaraq qlobal müstəvidə dinlər, sivilizasiyalar arasında dialoq və səmərəli əməkdaşlıq prosesində aparıcı rol oynayır. Bizə Rəbbin yaratdığı ən böyük dəyər olan insan həyatının xilası namına bugünkü forumun cəmiyyəti bəşəri amallar ətrafında birləşməyə çağırılması təqdirə layiq haldır. Bu məqsədlə təşəbbüs və əməllərə dəstək verməyə hazır olduğumuzu bildirir və tədbirin iştirakçılarına dərin minnətdarlığımızı ifadə edirik. Uca yaradan bütün xoşməramlarımıza rəvat versin. Amin. Və selamu aleykum və rəhmətullahi və bərəkatuhu.
Thank you. Obrigada. I would now ask you to take your seats. Agora eu os convido a tomarem seus assentos, except for Cole. A exceção do Cole. E também o Sheikh pode... Obrigada. Thank you. I would now like to invite Cole Durham, President of G20 Interfaith Forum, to introduce Mary Robinson, our keynote speaker. Eu gostaria agora de convidar Cole Durham, presidente do Fórum Interreligioso do G20, para apresentar Mary Robinson, a nossa oradora principal.
You'd be welcome to come forward at this time and take the stand. We're particularly honored to have, yes. Do you want to just sit here? We're particularly honored to have Mary Robinson with us. As you know, she is the founding member of the Elders, a body that comprises major heads of state, or past heads of state. She is a passionate advocate for gender equality, human dignity, and climate justice, all of which are obviously central to what we're doing here. As an elder, she has addressed the UN Security Council on multiple occasions and has met the world leaders to promote global peace, climate action, and ethical leadership. She was the first woman president of Ireland from 1990 to 1997 and is a former United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, 1997 to 2002. She is a tireless advocate for justice. She was president of Realizing Rights, the Ethical Globalization Initiative from 2002 to 2010. And between 2013 and 2016, she has served as the UN Secretary General Special Envoy in 3 roles. First, for the Great Lakes region of Africa, then on climate change until the historic Paris Agreement on Climate Change in 2015, and then as a special envoy on El Nino and climate. She was appointed adjunct professor for climate justice at Trinity College Dublin in 2019. So we're very grateful to have you here, and we'll turn the time over to you now. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, bon dia, bonjour, buenos dias, good morning, guten Morgen, jambo, giagiv. That last one is in my native Irish, and it translates as God be with you, which seems very appropriate to this forum. And it is an honor to be here with you at the G20 Interfaith Forum. The theme this year, Leave No One Behind, the well-being of the planet and its people, resonates deeply with me. I speak to you today, as you've heard, as chair of the Elders, the group of independent global leaders founded by Nelson Mandela in 2007. We're committed to advancing peace, justice, and human rights and a sustainable future for our planet. Frankly, I also speak as an angry granny. Earlier this year, I was in Brazil with 8 fellow elders. We had the pleasure of meeting with young climate activists, Black and Indigenous activists, as well as the Minister of Racial Equality, Aniel Franco, and the Finance Minister, Hernando Haddad. As the current holder of the G20 presidency and the host of next year's Global Climate Conference, COP30, Brazil is uniquely positioned to mobilize the world to address the crises we face. Today I want to talk about how we can create a sustainable planet, one where our climate is stable and our nature restored, and where people thrive. This requires a holistic approach, drawing on the diversity of civil society as well as sustained political leadership, and in which faith leaders and religious communities can play an important role. I realize these are not novel ideas for this distinguished audience. Just last year, Pope Francis released Laudate Deum, his response to the climate crisis and his hope for how societies must address it. In 2015, when the landmark Paris Agreement was adopted, Islamic and Hindu leaders called for urgent climate action in their declaration ahead of the summit. Religion is no stranger to the concept of caring for our planet, as we heard this morning. Buddhism offers important teachings about how interconnected and interdependent everything is on our planet, about how human beings are part of the environment, and vice versa. The same idea is at the core of many indigenous religions. Indigenous peoples have a deep kinship with nature and profound understanding of the importance of caring for nature in order to care for humanity. Sadly, we know this wisdom has not prevailed over the past centuries. Today, our planet is on a path of runaway climate change due to the rate of global warming. The Earth, as you know, is warmer than it has been in the last 125,000 years. This makes extreme weather events more severe and more frequent. Just last month, Typhoon Gamy wreaked havoc in the Philippines, Taiwan, and China, killing over 100 people and displacing hundreds of thousands. When I was in Brazil with my fellow elders last May, severe floods in the south of this country killed and injured hundreds and displaced 500,000 people. Earlier this year, thousands of wildfires burned through the Amazon rainforest, threatening its collapse. And last year's wildfires in Canada burned more forest area than in all recorded North American history. And just a few months ago, 1,300 people perished from deadly 47 degrees Celsius heat during the Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. And it's not just a climate crisis, it's a climate and nature crisis. Since 1970, we've seen 69% drop in wildlife populations. The ocean, which is the largest ecosystem on Earth, teeming with wondrous life, is experiencing increasing acidification and marine heat waves, threatening countless species. Our planet is undergoing the 6th great mass extinction, and this should alarm us all. But we know the root causes, which is the first step in solving the crisis. First, the burning of coal, oil, and gas accounts for 3/4 of global greenhouse gas emissions. These emissions blanket the Earth and trap the sun's heat, driving the climate breakdown we're experiencing. Scientists have been raising the alarm for decades now, and yet fossil fuels continue to represent about 80% of our total energy supply, still polluting the air we breathe and threatening life on Earth. Second, the way we produce, process, package, and transport food is responsible for 1/3 of emissions that heat our planet. Our global food system is also the primary driver of biodiversity loss. This is largely because we've converted natural ecosystems for farming and grazing. We've already altered 70% of the land, destroying habitats and the sources for food and shelter that wildlife depends on. The loss of nature is an existential threat for over 1/4 of the global population, which depends on its resources for their livelihoods. The climate and nature crisis confronts us with major ramifications for food and water security. More frequent extreme weather events threaten food production worldwide, while our limited supply of fresh water is dangerously dwindling. Every year, our planet continues to heat up. Left unchecked, this crisis' greatest toll will be on human life itself, with a direct cost to health estimated to be $2 to 4 billion per year by 2030, and increasing humanitarian emergencies. And let's not forget that this crisis is a profoundly unfair one. The most vulnerable, who have contributed the least to the problem, are already suffering the most. More frequent hurricanes, rising sea levels and coastal erosion are threatening small island developing states with their very existence. Extreme flooding in Pakistan in 2022 submerged 1/3 of the country and affected 33 million people, and the list, sadly, goes on. Each of these countries has emitted well below 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This disproportionate burden should outrage us, and we must transform outrage into action. Because if there's one thing you should take away from this speech, it is that however devastating this crisis is, we are not helpless against it. Far from it. As my dear friend, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu used to say, I am a prisoner of hope. I know we can tackle the climate and nature crisis. Solutions are already underway, and we must support and accelerate them. Renewable energy is being built at an unprecedented rate, with each new gigawatt of clean energy moving us one step closer to phasing out fossil fuels. At last year's COP28 climate conference, world leaders agreed to triple global renewable energy capacity by 2030. This ambitious goal can make all the difference in averting the worst impacts of climate breakdown for today's generations. Food producers across the globe are already shifting towards regenerative practices, which both reduce harm to nature and actively restore it. Regenerative farming alone could provide 1/3 of land-based climate action needed by 2030. At their local level, farmers, fishers, agroforesters, and many others are leading the way to help transform our global food system from an extractive to a restorative one. Coupled with measures to improve the transport and processing of food and to reduce food waste, we can not only mitigate climate change and support nature, but also enhance the resilience of our food system, in turn helping achieve food security. This is the beauty of these transitions. They can have a ripple effect on innumerable facets of society. They can help solve many interconnected crises today and for generations to come. And this is an important point. we must remember that we don't just inherit this earth, we are borrowing it from future generations. Indigenous peoples speak of the seventh generation principle, which invites us to think of the decisions we take today and whether they will result in a sustainable world 7 generations in the future. So how can we make the right decisions today? I believe it starts with having more diverse voices at the table and creating greater pluralism and urgency. We need better representation of women, youth, LGBTI communities, indigenous peoples, and marginalized groups in the decision-making process. This can help deliver the inclusive, transparent, and accountable mechanisms that we need. Above all, we need to encourage a sense of connection between all of us striving for that healthier, fairer, renewable, energy-powered world. And that is what Project Dandelion, a woman-led climate justice movement, is seeking to do. You can see I'm wearing a large dandelion pin. We are inspired by the dandelion, which grows on all continents, is both resilient and regenerative of the soil, can be consumed in its entirety, and is spread by blowing its seeds. Already, Project Dandelion has connected with a multi-faith women and climate action network, and I'm pleased to be invited to their second meeting in Rome in October. Connecting networks, and as Katherine said, networks of networks like this, is a way of growing our power to influence climate and nature outcomes. Project Dandelion is women-led but not women only. As well as faith-based groups, we hope to link with indigenous communities, young people, progressive business, scientists, artists, farmers, etc., and show that we are in fact the majority world. And from world leaders, who are the ultimate decision makers on the global stage, we need long-view leadership. We need to persuade decision makers to understand the urgency of the existential threats we face and to believe in our ability to overcome them. Long-view leaders must have the moral strength to address both current concerns and long-term risks, often at the expense of vested interests. They must think beyond short-term political cycles and deliver solutions for both current and future generations. This is a call the elders made to world leaders earlier this year, a call that I reiterate today, a call that I urge you to make with us, and which I hope can become a rallying cry in your communities around the world. Imagine the change we can create if we join our voices. We're on the cusp of a wonderful, safer, fairer, cleaner, healthier world. We're moving towards it. We're moving faster, but not fast enough for the science. Our leaders must accelerate the transition away from extracting industries and fulfill their promises to deliver on the global climate and nature goals. They must seize the opportunity this year during the G20 meetings, at the COP16 Nature Conference in Colombia, at the COP29 Climate Conference in Azerbaijan, and at COP30 next year in this country. Later is too late. I call on world leaders to deliver the finance needed for nature and climate, which is the focus of COP29 this year. Only then can we create a just and equitable transition that safeguards the rights of the most vulnerable and of future generations. And let me end with very succinct words of Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it is done. Obrigada. Thank you very much. Stay here. Stay here.
Muito obrigada por essas palavras tão potentes. E eu espero que, mesmo sem a tradução para o português, vocês tenham podido sentir não só a intenção, mas a relevância e a procedência dessas palavras que representam palavras de outros sábios líderes que formam esse conselho. Mais uma vez, muito obrigada. Thank you again. Now I would like to to invite some other guests to be here with us so that we can hear the perspectives from a number of religious leaders who are here also with us. Let me ask those who have just given their welcoming addresses previously and to remain with us. And now we'll be honored to invite here the following leaders. Dom Zanoni Demetino, Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Feira de Santana and member of the National Conference of Bishops of Brazil, CNBB. Dom Zanoni Demetino, arcebispo da Arquidiocese de Feira de Santana e membro da Conferência Nacional dos Bispos do Brasil, CNBB. Reverend Juan Cruz, President of the Latino Evangelical Alliance, presidente da Aliança Evangélica Latino-Americana.
So just make sure you don't announce the other sheikh that spoke.
Venerable Sadhvi Bhagavati Sarasvati, Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance, Secretária-Geral da Aliança Global Interreligiosa para Água, Saneamento e Higiene. Muhammad Bar, Head of the Strategic Planning of the Muslim Council of Elders, chefe de planejamento estratégico do Conselho dos Anciãos Muçulmanos. And you can now please sit. And then we also have Elder Hamad S. Corbett, and from the 70 at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 70 em a Igreja de Jesus Cristo dos Santos dos Últimos Dias. We give each of them now 5 minutes to share their perspectives. We'll hear first from Archbishop Dom Zanoni Demetino. Damos a cada deles agora 5 minutos para compartilhar suas perspectivas. Ouviremos primeiro o arcebispo Dom Zanoni Demetino.
Muito bom dia a todos e todas, todos que participam aqui. Para mim é motivo de profunda alegria participar desse fórum interreligioso do G20. Como foi falado, estou na condição de representante da Conferência Nacional dos Bispos do Brasil. Desejo muito, nesta circunstância, expressar minha gratidão pela oportunidade que me foi dada, em nome também da conferência, de falar neste importante acontecimento. De fato, é imperativo não deixar ninguém para trás. O bem-estar do planeta e do seu povo é a nossa grande reflexão. Temos consciência do importante papel das religiões na gestação de um mundo de paz. Precisamos todos nos envolver por uma vida em harmonia com a criação, respeitando os limites do planeta. Temos presente e trazemos aqui a realidade concreta do nosso povo, o sofrimento de comunidades pobres e os limites da realidade, as comunidades pobres e vulneráveis. Estamos dispostos e queremos nos empenhar por novos modelos de desenvolvimentos e estilo de vida, que sejam compatíveis também com o clima e sejam capazes de afastar as pessoas da pobreza. Neste momento, vivemos uma crise avassaladora, que é constatada que a vida humana é ameaçada no que diz respeito aos seus direitos básicos negados. Isso nós presenciamos de maneira tão forte: a desigualdade, o desemprego, a fome. Essa realidade tantas vezes refletida, aprofundada. Presenciamos o terror da guerra em muitos pontos do planeta. O Papa Francisco tem insistido: estamos em uma guerra mundial em pedaços. Ao mesmo tempo, são muitas as narrativas. É grave a realidade de desinformação e manipulação de notícias, a disseminação de fake news e o discurso de ódio. Todavia, diante dessa realidade complexa, estamos aqui para isso. Mudar é necessário. Em meio a muitas polarizações, a humanidade necessita ser reconciliada em si mesma e com o cosmos. A complexidade deve ser enfrentada com amplitude de pensamento, com racionalidade coerente e ações que provoquem uma radical mudança. Deste modo, diante dessa crise planetária, a sociedade anseia por unidade, por comunhão. Precisamos mudar. Um despertar para uma produção de conhecimento, para a complexidade do pensamento. Nesse momento, pensar envolvendo as partes, os recortes, vendo de maneira simultânea o múltiplo e o complexo. Respostas simplórias, superficiais, não são suficientes, pois uma educação na perspectiva de uma pedagogia da paz deve passar por um processo mais amplo. Desta forma, nos perguntamos, diante desta realidade, qual deve ser a nossa postura? Quem vai gestar o mundo de paz? E é justamente aqui se coloca nossa responsabilidade. Nossa geração tem a responsabilidade de conseguir que os valores que anunciamos sejam fermento no processo de gestação de um novo modelo cultural. Muito obrigado pela atenção.
I would also welcome to stand here with us His Excellency Sheikh Al Mahfoud bin Bayah, Secretary-General, Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace. Convido agora para estar aqui no palco conosco a Sua Excelência, o Sheikh Al Mahfoud bin Bayah, secretário-geral do Fórum para a Paz de Abu Dhabi.
Bueno, para respetar los 5 minutos, voy a hablar en español y voy a leer un resumen sobre el tema hacia un mundo equitativo de promesas y oportunidades. A lo largo de la historia, la Iglesia Evangélica ha desempeñado un papel significativo en la transformación social y en la promoción de la equidad y las oportunidades en diversas regiones del mundo. Sus aportes pueden percibirse en el enorme trabajo comunitario que realizan en muchos países, ayudando a los más vulnerables para que puedan acceder a recursos como alimentación, educación, salud, entre otros. La Alianza Evangélica Latina, presente en los 22 países de América Latina, con 22 miembros plenos, representa aproximadamente 500.000 iglesias en todo el continente. Aproximadamente en este continente somos el 25% de la población. La EL posee varias comisiones de trabajo enfocadas en distintas áreas como niñez, libertad religiosa, mujer, asuntos humanitarios, discipulado, comunicación, evangelismo, dignidad humana, familia y sociedad, entre otros. La Comisión de Mujer, por ejemplo, lucha contra la violencia hacia la mujer en todos los espacios de la sociedad. Además, garantiza que más mujeres puedan ocupar puestos de liderazgo en las iglesias, derribando todos los estereotipos que como la mujer no está apta para liderar. La Comisión de Dignidad Humana, Familia y Sociedad lucha por la vida. Este es un derecho fundamental, protegerlo desde la concepción. Todo ser humano tiene derecho a nacer y a crecer en una familia formada por padre, madre, hermanos, para su completo y correcto desarrollo. La niñez es importante protegerla. Ninguna ideología puede decirnos cómo criar a nuestros hijos. Nosotros como padres tenemos la tarea de brindarles a nuestros hijos la educación con valores basada en la palabra de Dios y a la vez los desafíos en la alimentación y en la educación en los más vulnerables. La libertad religiosa es fundamental para nosotros y creemos que todas las personas de este mundo deben vivir su fe sin restricciones ni persecución. Lamentablemente, esto no es la realidad en muchos países, pero no nos cansaremos de luchar para que más naciones puedan proteger a los cristianos de todo el mundo y asimismo que se pueda mantener este derecho en países que sí lo aplican. Nicaragua es un país que está atravesando un momento muy complicado con la libertad religiosa. Con nuestra Comisión de Asuntos Humanitarios nos enfocamos en las actuales problemáticas migratorias en América Latina, en donde desde hace años vemos el fenómeno de migración hacia el norte de América por las dificultades económicas y de seguridad de muchos países latinoamericanos. Actualmente los países en donde más se observa la migración por la situación en la que están sumidos son Venezuela y Haití, cuyas realidades están marcadas por la escasez, la violencia y la represión. Como iglesia enunciamos que toda persona tiene el derecho a vivir en paz y progreso en el país que lo vio nacer y siempre vamos a promover eso. El tema Venezuela me lo salto. Somos conscientes de los desafíos actuales y creemos que todas las cuestiones que nos afectan pueden ser resueltas a través de diálogo y el trabajo en conjunto. Y quiero cerrar con lo que dice un versículo en Mateo capítulo 25. Porque tuve hambre y me disteis de comer. Tuve sed y me diste de beber. Fui forastero y me recibiste. Estaba desnudo y me vestiste. Enfermo y me visitaste en la cárcel y viniste a mí. Este es el espíritu que tenemos como cristianos. Estamos para servir, para ayudar y para luchar por los que pasan necesidad, para que de esta forma nos dirijamos hacia un mundo equitativo de promesas y oportunidades. Gracias.
It's such a blessing, a joy, an honor, and an incredible, indescribable challenge to respond in just 5 minutes to the amazingly inspiring, uplifting, touching keynote address that was just given by our honorable and respected Mary Robinson. I will do the best that I can, speaking from the perspective of the Hindu tradition and on behalf of our Global Interfaith WASH Alliance. There's no way that there's time to speak to all of the points she raised, but just highlighting a few that touched me particularly deeply. Number one, her emphasis around the crisis of not just climate, but the crisis of nature and the way that this is impacting our sisters and brothers around the world in very unequal, unjust ways, and the necessity for us to remedy that. In the Hindu tradition, we don't see nature as a resource. Nature is not something for us to use and therefore abuse and discard for our purposes. Nature is sacred. There's a beautiful teaching in the scriptures that says, Isha vasyamidam sarvam, yat kincha jagatyam jagat. And it means everything in the universe is pervaded by the divine. So every human being of every race, every religion, every color, every culture, every blade of grass, every drop of water, every mountain, everything is pervaded by the divine. When we perform our ceremonies, we offer the 5 elements in the sacred ceremony, not because God needs us to offer back these things to God, but to remind us that the elements are sacred. We pray to the elements as divine. We say, Vayu Dev, the divinity of the wind. Jal Dev, the divinity of the water. Agni Dev, the divinity of the fire. And so that sense of a sacredness and therefore a responsibility to protect it, to preserve it, and to ensure that no one is suffering. The other point she raised had to do with food and the place where food and faith comes together is a place where we are very, very committed, very adamant. The Hindu religion in most cases is a religion committed to vegetarianism, but beyond that, our faith in general requires us to live consciously. And Hinduism and the Vedic tradition is really committed to teaching us how, in every choice we make, what we wear, how we dress, how we shop, how we work, how we eat, how that choice can be a choice for peace, for sustainability, for equality. Mahatma Gandhi said so beautifully, there's always enough for everyone's need and never enough for anyone's greed. And I could go on all day about the topic of vegetarianism. I won't. I will leave it at that, but just to say how deeply that resonated with me, because the aspect of food distribution is something that is spoken about and emphasized far too infrequently in these arenas. And lastly, due not to the paucity of powerful topics, but just due to the paucity of time. Lastly, as she emphasized, the importance of faith leaders, religious leaders coming together, this outrage into action, and having the moral strength to really speak for that which is necessary. And our religion, our faith, gives us not only our yes, but also our no. And it needs to teach us what to say yes to and what to say no to. And as we are gathered here, it is so critical that from our different religions, we echo this no of what is happening across the planet. And just lastly with that, our Global Interfaith Wash Alliance has been working in the ways that she mentioned of changing how people think, how they believe, and therefore how they act, and whether it's around aspects of ending open defecation, whether it's around aspects of ending the taboo around menstruation so that our girls can stay in school, can get their education, we can have the gender equality and dignity, but also so that we can make sure that their health and the health of the families is taken care of. And one of the things in closing that we're so committed to is the awareness that, okay, we may not pray together, but we can plant trees together. And just yesterday, which was Raksha Bandhan, a very powerful holiday in India and the Hindu tradition of sisters and brothers coming together in love and friendship and protection, our team in Delhi brought together so many other organizations, youth, women's groups, so many organizations, and planted 125,000 trees with the motto of tying the Rakhi, the string of this brotherly, sisterly love and protection around the trees to protect and preserve and love and serve our creation. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity.
I would echo my sister Sadvi, and it's very difficult to reflect and to reply to your visionary speech. But I would like to build on the critical need for environmental awareness and the care of our planet Earth. In a world of an urgent need of healing, restoration, and critical need for environmental awareness, and care for our planet has never been very clear. And we must all become stewards of the earth, fostering ethical values in our children, and that promote critical awareness of our social needs while equipping them to become compassionate, empathetic, and responsible citizens. So my message is, I think, like education and faith, which is provide hope, is key for a more sustainable world. Education is, I think, is the most powerful tool that we have to create a more sustainable and equitable world. And at the Muslim Council of Elders, we're collaborating with Arigato, Qaisid, the Higher Committee of Human Fraternity, and UNESCO and other partners to support governments in integrating ethical education in their curriculums. We started the pilot phase with 6 countries, and we're continuing these efforts. I think this integration contributes to the interreligious learning and dialogue and empowering children to become agents of change who can really work in collaborative ways across ethnicity, religion, and socioeconomic backgrounds. In a global response to climate change, I think the resilience and effectiveness of our actions can be significantly enhanced even in the face of lack of funding or funding challenges that we face in the climate by focusing on moral values and education. I think faith communities often the first responders during crisis, and according to statistics, they are account of more than 1.5 million sustainability projects. But their greatest contribution is the moral compass they provide, which guides ethical decisions and compassionate action. Now in the climate arena, to stick to the 1.5 Celsius, we need the morals. We need an ethical decisions. To push the countries to submit their NDCs, we need this kind of moral decisions that taken by leaders. And this will be only influenced through hope and faith. I think by leveraging faith and faith communities, moral authority, and a commitment to social justice, and their keen efforts on a very powerful topic, which is the non-economic loss and damage. I think faith communities can push for a more ambitious climate action. And as Professor Katherine mentioned in her address, faith communities were almost invisible, especially in COPs and climate discussions. That's why we felt as a religious institution and as an interfaith organizations, the responsibility to push and leveraging and engaging high-level religious leaders in the climate action, which is started by what the New York Times mentioned is a beacon of hope or a place of hope at COPs, which started with the visionary COP28 presidency in the United Arab Emirates. We built the Faith Pavilion, which was the first Faith Pavilion at COPs. And we're continuing with the support of the COP29 presidency in Azerbaijan, and we will continue the efforts to have the Faith Pavilion, the faith that provides a faith voice and provide hope for everyone in COP. And hopefully, of course, we will continue these efforts to connecting to COP30 presidency and continue the efforts at least the next NDCs round. I think also like the MCU is UNEP, we just launched Al-Mizan, which is the Islamic perspective on the climate action, which is, it's kind of like I would say the equal perspective to the Laudato Si issued by the Pope Francis, His Holiness. And all these efforts are beacons of hope that illustrates how faith provides hope and how hope together with education can transform lives. As we continue our efforts, let us remain steadfast in our belief that through faith, education, and collective actions, we can achieve a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world. Thank you.
Excellencies and friends, it's an honor to be here with you. It's a particular privilege to share this platform with former President Robinson and to hear your brilliant and inspiring remarks, and to be here with fellow and sister panelists here. And eu não falo português, mas hablo el español. Así que entendí todo lo que usted dijo, Reverend, pero la mitad de lo que usted dijo, Archbishop. So I understood all of what the Reverend said and about half of what the Archbishop said. And thank you for your inspiring remarks. Two things come to mind in response to President Robinson's thoughtful remarks. and I'm relating them to two elements of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which I represent. One is the two great commandments, which Jesus articulated in response to a question by a lawyer, by the way, and President Robinson is a lawyer, so am I. We both trafficked in criminal law, apparently, once upon a time. And the two great commandments, and the other is living apostles. Let me just briefly connect them to the message we heard. Leaving no one behind, the well-being of the planet, toward an equitable world and of promise and opportunity, and the global setting in which we just heard all of this contextualized. I call attention to the order of the two great commandments. The first, we understand in the Christian faith, is to love God with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. And the second is to love our neighbor as we should love ourselves. One modern apostle taught that the best way to live the first commandment is to live the second commandment. That God expects us to love and care for each other and to care for each other's environment, fundamentally. We also believe as we love and serve God, we will naturally act in the best interests of all our brothers and sisters whom we believe to be His children. And of course that includes our planet. Of course it includes being good stewards of what our scripture refers to as Mother Earth. As we live together, of course we will respect each other's beliefs and rights, especially freedom of religion and belief. We should also find and see the good in godly and religions. And this is where I relate this to modern and living apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For example, a group of them, the highest ranking authorities in my church, think of Peter, James, John, and others, issued this statement long ago. The great religious leaders of the world, such as Muhammad, Confucius, and the reformers, as well as philosophers, including Socrates, Plato, and others, received a portion of God's light. That's not something you hear from all religions. Continuing the quote, moral truths were given to them by God to enlighten whole nations and bring a higher level of understanding to individuals. What if we all thought that about each other and about each other's religions? Our beliefs are no reason, quoting another modern apostle, our beliefs are no reason for anyone to feel superior in any way toward others of God's children. Rather, it requires a greater obligation to invoke the essence of the gospel of Christ, as we believe it, in our lives, to love, serve, and bless others. And this was not in that list of religions was not an attempt to list all religions, obviously, but a statement of obvious high regard and profound respect for the religions of our brothers and sisters in the human family throughout the world. Thus, we have great respect, one of them said, for the sincere religious beliefs of others and appreciate others extending the same courtesy and respect for the tenets we hold dear. Tomorrow, we will have an opportunity to hear one of the living apostles, who happens to also be Brazilian, Elder Ulisses Soares. e fala muito bem português. You'll see, you'll hear. But in conclusion, the two great commandments and living apostles and prophets support in my heart and mind President Robinson's powerful premise and profound remarks, which we were all blessed and privileged to hear today. Thank you again for them.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you so much for inviting me in the last minute, and thank you for inviting me to a stage when I don't know what is the subject I'm talking about, and maybe I don't know why I'm here on the stage, but I don't think we need that much to prepare for what we're trying to do. Thank you, President Person, for your presentation. And you said that Desmond Tutu said he's always a prisoner for hope. So that's what we all hear about. We're all prisoners for hope for better future, and better coexistent, and better united between our religion. Thank you, Cole, for inviting me. Thank you, Katherine Marshall, all the friends. And I'm here today. I don't want to speak about what my country, UAE, is doing, because our work is more louder than our words. And the last thing we had initiative is Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed declared $6 billion for water. And water has become a big crisis in the world today, as well as the violence in the name of religion. So we want, the only thing that we wanted to pass to the leaders of the G20, that please, when the politicians decide to commit their crime, they should not put in the name of religion. And from our side, we will fight as much we can to interpret and to protect our religion from to be used and abused in the name of God to the crimes that people committed in the name of religion. We're coming from an area, you know what's going on there. You know the pain we have. You know the people, the civilians that are dying every day in Palestine and Gaza. You know the aggressive that's the government of Israel leading by Benjamin Netanyahu doing right now. You know that's not excuse for we kidnapped what happened in 7 October by this extremist group. So, but there is innocent people dying. And we want to really all stand against violence and extremism. All stand. Life, everybody deserves life. Everyone deserves life. And as Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, peace for all. And if you save one life, you're saving the whole of humanity. We want to call from here to the G20, please cease fire. Please stop this war. Stop this crazy war. Stop war everywhere. Please stop war and try to help us. And let us unite our voices here today and tomorrow for better life and better future, and we'll be all prisoners for hope again. Thank you very much.
His Excellency Sheikh Al-Mahfoud, thank you, and thank you all for accepting our invitation to be here with us. And looking at the program, it's beautiful and rich to see so many diverse names written and spelled so differently. It doesn't make my life easier, though. Eu agradeci a Sua Excelência, o Sheikh Al-Mahfoud, por ter aceitado o nosso convite e estar aqui conosco e ter a coragem de endereçar a nossa audiência, assim como os demais. E disse também que é muito rico e bonito até olhar o programa e ver tantos nomes diversos e de origens e procedências tão diferentes, mas isso não torna a minha vida mais fácil. So, if I have the opportunity to meet you, you are invited to experience with my name also, and I will love to hear any version that comes out. Então, se eu tiver a oportunidade de encontrar vocês, fiquem também à vontade para pronunciar o meu nome e eu vou ficar muito feliz de ouvir da forma que vier. So, thank you, and now I would like to invite Thaisa Silva da Costa, also known as Thaisa Cambeba, to present an Indigenous Leader Appeal. Agora, então, eu tenho o prazer de convidar a Thaisa Silva da Costa para estar aqui conosco. Pode vir, Thaisa. Nós estivemos juntos em Manaus. Ela também é conhecida como Thaisa Cambeba. E ela vai apresentar, então, um apelo dos jovens líderes indígenas. Por favor.
Catuxize, Aitashira Taratucupi, Kakira Neritama Tururu Cariúca. Olá, me chamo Thaisa, sou indígena do povo Amagocambeba, moro na aldeia Tururu Cariúca, no Amazonas. Faço parte da Visão Mundial como jovem aprendiz, sou ativista, sou comunicadora e vou ler um pequeno texto para vocês. Em um mundo repleto de desafios, onde a fome é miserável, ainda mais presente, é urgente que busquemos a solução que ressoe com a esperança e a solidariedade. A crise alimentar que aflige milhões pode ser enfrentada através da agricultura sustentável, onde semente plantada representa uma promessa de um amanhã mais farto e justo. Precisamos unir forças para reduzir o desperdício de alimentos, transformando o que poderia ser descartado em vida e dignidade para aquelas pessoas que precisam. O meio ambiente clama por nossa atenção. Proteger nossa floresta e oceanos é um ato de amor pelas futuras gerações. Investimento de recursos financeiros direto com aldeias nas energias renováveis, água potável, internet, educação ambiental e outros. Não apenas uma necessidade, é um compromisso com o nosso planeta. Cada escolha sustentável que fazemos ecoa em direção a um futuro mais verde. A construção de paz exige diálogo e empatia. Precisamos ouvir as vozes silenciadas, promover a inclusão e atendimento em diferentes culturas e comunidades. Quando nos unimos, transformamos conflitos em oportunidades de crescimento. O alívio da dívida é um passo vital para permitir que países em desenvolvimento floresçam. Reestruturar dívidas não é apenas uma questão econômica, é uma questão de justiça social. Recurso poupado pode ser direcionado para a saúde, educação e infraestrutura. Enfrentar o tráfico de pessoas e a escravidão moderna é uma luta que deve nos tocar profundamente. Precisamos educar nossas comunidades, fortalecer leis e garantir que todos tenham acesso à liberdade e à dignidade. Por fim, as mudanças climáticas exigem ação imediata. Cada pequeno gesto conta. Plantar uma árvore, economizar energia ou apoiar políticas ambientais. Juntos, podemos reverter o curso de histórias. Vale ressaltar que podemos ter avanços, sim, com a participação de todos, mas talvez não chegamos muito longe se não for com a participação direta com as comunidades indígenas, ribeirinhas, extrativistas e os que mais realmente precisam. Por isso, eu faço um apelo a todos os presentes. Inclui também os jovens nas suas organizações na jornada das políticas para um futuro do mundo. Com coragem e determinação, podemos transformar desafios e oportunidades para criar um mundo onde todos vivam com dignidade, segurança e esperança. O futuro está em nossas mãos. Chito Manito, muito obrigada.
So good to have Thaisa here with us, a representative also of the rising generation. Muito bom ter a Thaisa conosco novamente, uma representante da geração que nos sucederá e que aumenta, portanto, o nosso compromisso. I now invite you to take your seat so that you can watch 2 videos with the audience. Thank you so much for your contributions. Eu convidei os nossos oradores para que retomem aos seus lugares, para que possam assistir com vocês a 2 vídeos muito especiais. So we'll first watch from the ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew, and then second from Ajarn Sulak Sivaraksa, founder of the International Network of Engaged Buddhists and honorary president of Religious for Peace. Agora, então, eu convido a todos para assistirmos a 2 mensagens em vídeo. A primeira do patriarca ecumênico Bartolomeu e a segunda de Ajar Sulak Sivaraksa, fundador da Rede Internacional de Budistas Engajados e presidente honorário das Religiões pela Paz.
I that it is truly a pleasure and a privilege to address you. I am thankful for the G20 Interfaith Forum in association with the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development, as well as the Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities. We are sincerely sorry that, due to prior commitments, we are only able to join you through this video message. We are all living in and directly witnessing troubled times when peace and security, but also balance and sustainability, are under imminent threat. We see unfolding before our eyes the suffering of innocent people and the devastation of natural resources. With the unjust invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the unjustifiable violation of criminal law in the Middle East. But we also see instability and vulnerability rising everywhere among us and around us, in the United Kingdom, the United States, in Europe and Australia, in Africa and Asia. We see it among laborers and students, among citizens and migrants. Faith leaders and religious communities can no longer be silent before such violation of human life and human dignity. We are obliged to speak up for and stand beside those who have no voice, beside the elderly and disabled, the women and children. All of these represent the inconsolable voice of weeping and lamentation, described in chapter 2 of the Gospel according to Matthew. And we are compelled to listen to and respond to the cry of the earth, the groaning and pain of creation described in chapter 8 of the letter to the Romans. Moreover, just like the countless victims of persecution and the global refugees of war, the natural environment too cannot resist our misuse or contradict our mistreatment. It cannot restrain our exploitation or restrict our desolation. Therefore, it is our responsibility to render accountable all those who abuse their power and suppress the blameless it is our obligation to offer hope and sustenance to those caught up in the terror and tragedy of hostility or conflict, while providing continuance and sustainability to our unique and irreplaceable plan. Dear friends, with this brief personal message from our homeland, the island of Alves, we would like to extend a passionate appeal to all of you as decision makers at the G20 Interfaith Forum to consider carefully the present and future of global affairs and to work for the promotion of a culture of solidarity and peace for the whole world, for which we fervently pray in every divine service in the Orthodox Church. We would like to assure you that we are with you in spirit and prayer. May God bless you and grant you the wisdom and courage to serve as peacemakers and bridge builders. Thank you.
Rich countries, like rich people, most of them don't realize that their wealth relates to poverty of other people. Indeed, very few people are rich in any country. Most people are poor. Likewise, among the rich nations, they sometimes come together. And I don't know whether they are aware that the wealth, again, depends on poverty of the other nations. If people who are rich and the rich nation have consciousness, their life is not only striving for more wealth, which means that you exploit more natural resources, you exploit the poor. If you have that awareness, I think rich person can be better person. Rich nation can be better nations. These, you need some awareness and mindfulness and humility. I think that would make people become better human beings. Among the